Long before Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad that ushered slaves north to freedom, there was another Underground Railroad that traveled south into what is now Florida. This began after rumors spread in the Carolinas that if slaves could make it to Florida, they would regain some semblance of independence. This pilgrimage that slaves would undergo was met with several challenges, such as harsh terrain and avoiding slave catchers. Native American tribes such as the Yamasee sometimes helped facilitate the escapees' journey to Florida. In 1733, after King Philip V of Spain instated a decree that offered runaway slaves freedom at the price of religion and labor. As you can imagine, leaders of South Carolina and Georgia were not pleased with this decree by the Spanish. It was recorded that William Stephens, a colonial secretary, stated that slaves would march southward when they pleased. This decree not only disrupted economic life in the South, but it also served to galvanize Spain's military force. In fact, the first free black settlement in America was created as a strategic military outpost north of St. Augustine, known as Gracia Real de Santa Teresa de Mose, or Fort Mose for short. After a military alliance was formed between Georgia and the Muskogee tribe, Fort Mose served as a buffer town between St. Augustine and the British colonies. As more and more fugitives arrived in Florida, they were sent to the fort, with most of the male slaves joining the black militia. Captain Don Francisco Menendez was a former slave who fought in the Yamasee War of 1715 to 1717, and due to his bravery, he eventually became captain of the black militia in Florida in 1726. Years later, Governor Manuel de Montiano was so impressed with Captain Menendez that he appointed him commander of Fort Mose in 1738. Life inside the fort was an entirely new and different existence for black people at the time. The community of Fort Mose included Africans from America and the Caribbean. They worked as blacksmiths, bakers, and even grocery clerks. This black bastion was not only supposed to be a buffer town, but also a farming ground. It is speculated that they grew corn and rice. However, they were unable to become totally self-sufficient off of the crops they grew, as it is documented that they received government supplies such as beef and pork and biscuits at irregular intervals. Unfortunately, this community of free African Americans will not last long before the British attacked in 1740, just 2 years after the fort was built. General James Oglethorpe of Georgia led an attack on St. Augustine, capturing Fort Mose in the process. He was backed by Native American allies as well as men from the Carolinas. The Moseans fled the town during the attack, completely abandoning the fort for 12 years. After the British were defeated, the second Fort Mose was built in 1752. Residents were pressured to move to the fort as Spain still needed a first line of defense against the British. This fort was ultimately abandoned as well in 1763. It took archaeologists, legislators, and scientists to shine a light on this colonial past of Florida. Fort Mose stands as a powerful testament to the courage of African Americans who escaped slavery and valiantly defended their newfound homeland.